Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I am Ralph LaBella.
And I'm Ron Sen. Lots to talk about, from the Super Bowl to travesties in the world of sports. And we'll start with that. Larry Nasser from Michigan State is going to spend the rest of his life in prison, deservedly so, for child abuse and abuse of female gymnasts from the U.S. Olympic team. There's no excuse. And the problem is, it seems there's no depth to which these scandals don't go. Michigan State had basketball players who apparently were under investigation for sexual abuse. The NCAA president, Mark Emmert, apparently was reported to in 2010 about these activities, and it's one giant cover-up. It's unacceptable, and there needs to be strong action. I don't care if it's suspension for coaches, teams losing playoff opportunities, whatever, it needs to be addressed.
You know, that should be, and that's incredible, Ron. How did it go so long without anybody knowing? Parents, you know, other coaches of the players. It's amazing. I mean, I didn't read that much about it. I know about it, but I'm saying to myself, you have the parents that the coaches are really running the program when they're away from home. They have.
Well, you'd think that some of the kids had to say something to somebody, and I think they just got ignored or were somehow they weren't believed, but it doesn't make any sense to me.
You know, it goes back to what's happening in Hollywood and all over. You know, people are afraid to say things, but that's mind-boggling. You know, as a parent, you're going to be checking on your kid, making sure everything's all right. You know, you expect the coaches to take care of your child.
Well, if you put in your zip code to a site like Kids Live Safe, and I'm not exactly sure what the distance is in your neighborhood, it'll show like 350 registered sex offenders in the surrounding area, and you just say, wow, how can this be? But then you understand why parents aren't going to let their kids go to the playground unsupervised, etc., because they're not safe.
And look what happened in Melrose years ago. I mean, that was pretty bad with a coach from Melrose who ended up still in prison. But I mean, you know, it's unbelievable how things are going.
Well, of course, you probably see this in your work day to day.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's happening almost. You know, we had someone, what's really getting bad is child pornography. You know, that's really bad. And we're getting them in once a week. We're getting someone in on that.
Well, on to the Super Bowl. The Patriots there for the third time in 4 years, for the second time during this long reign. And there's a lot to talk about. First of all, we can compare the coaches, and you have to wonder about, can Peterson keep up with Belichick? Or are the Eagles just underrated because of their strong offensive and defensive line, and they're going to give the Patriots a heck of a game?
You know, they played Seattle 3 years ago. They played Atlanta, all big games. The Seattle game was huge. The Atlanta game was huge. But I'll tell you, I would love to see them hammer Philadelphia. They're really, even though they're underdogs, they're really cocky. The fans are cocky. The players are cocky. They're going to come at the Patriots big time. I just watched an interview with Gronk. They cleared him to play, and he was talking about that, and he goes, they're going to be coming after us, and we're going to be surely coming after them. It's going to be a great game. I'm really looking forward to that game, Ron.
Well, there was an interesting question during Belichick's press conference. He said, if you were Bill Belichick, the coach, being asked about Bill Belichick, the player at Wesleyan, what would you say? And he said, you've got a long way to go, buddy. Maybe you should think about getting into coaching. So I thought that was pretty funny. You know, Belichick has an outstanding resume, as everybody knows. Whether he's the best coach in the history of sports, really, you have to wonder. But in any one game, anything can happen. I remember earlier this year they asked Jaylen Brown of the Celtics, how come the Celtics were making all these great comebacks? And he said, because we were playing really terrible and getting way behind. So that's really, I'm sure Belichick would probably say that in the past. We got behind because we didn't play well, so then we had to come back.
I think they're going to start off great. I'm really looking forward to the game. I think they're going to play their best game of the season Sunday.
Well, you know, I think that what we know is the Patriots usually are going to score 27 to 30 points. So it's pretty hard for the opposition to come out and play conservative football and succeed. So we know that Philadelphia has the highest yards per carry on first down in the NFL. It's over 5, and the Patriots allow the most yards rushing. But the Patriots just baiting them into that if they get
Of course.
5 yards?
They want him running the ball. We talked about this in a previous Super Bowl, I think the Seattle Super Bowl, and we said the Patriots want you to be successful running the ball. They want you to run it because it's going to take a lot longer to get downfield, number one, when you're running the football. And even if they get 5 or 6 yards on first down, they run again, they get 2 yards. Now it's 3rd and 2. They only have to stop on one pass play. If a team comes out that's a pretty good passing team and can throw the ball, put pressure on the Patriots, I would love to see them run the ball twice. I would love to see them average 5 yards a time, get them on a 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, hold them on that one down, rather than have them pass the ball 3 times.
Well, the worrisome thing for the Patriots is dealing with the run-pass option, where Foles has an offset back, often to the right. He reads the defense, whatever his keys are, whether it's looking at the cornerback relative to the wide receiver, or whether it's looking at how many men they have in the box. And then he has to make a quick decision whether he's going to hand off or, in effect, throw a play-action pass off in a slant. Now, you'd think the Patriots are going to play man-to-man defense on that with the corners, and probably try to have if the receiver is wide, that is outside the numbers, get inside leverage to try to make Foles throw a pinpoint pass to the sideline.
I think Harrison's going to come up big. They were talking about that earlier today because where he comes from, their offensive line is strong, but they're weaker at tackle against on the run, and especially if Harrison's going to be penetrating on the passing plays. And they think Harrison could have a huge game. And, Flowers on the other side. Harrison and Flowers now. And you have Brown inside with Guy. And I think their defensive line's a lot stronger than they were.
And the key for Philadelphia is getting pressure on Brady. When the Patriots lost to the Giants were getting pressure in one form or another on over 40% of the passing downs. And the Eagles have gotten pressure on about 41% during the postseason. So it's going to be the Eagles' pass rush against the Patriots' offensive line. They probably have White in because he's good at blitz pickup. And we'll see how it goes.
You know what I don't understand, though? I thought that Jacksonville had the most sacks, 50-something sacks this year. That's what I thought I read. And Philadelphia had 30-something sacks for the season, but they're putting pressure.
Right. Jacksonville, they had, I think, 28 in 4 games against bad teams, so they really kind of padded their stats. Some people have billed this game as America's most hated team versus America's most hated fans. What do you think about that?
Well, the Patriots are the most hated team because they win all the time. That's the reason. Everybody says they cheat. That's the biggest joke. They cheat because they were taking pictures of the opposite team with signals, especially mostly on offense. I mean, they knew what they were calling every time. They didn't need that. Belichick, he wants to maximize his chances of winning, so he keeps a room with film. But what if they change one of the codes, one of the signs? Forget about your film, so what are you getting out of that? Nothing. But they're complaining that they film their practices. They're all, sore losers. That's what it comes down to.
Well, think back to the 60s and the Green Bay Packers. Everybody knew they were going to run the sweep right or left. So what? You got to stop it, even if you know it's coming.
But there's too many of these players. I mean, I've heard all week I'm hearing these players that played against them in big games, and they're all saying they cheat. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just a bunch of babies that couldn't beat them.
As far as Brady comes into the Super Bowl with a 5-2 record, if he goes to 5-3, is that somehow a diminution of his achievement, or does it just reflect how good he's been that he gets there half of his seasons?
Well, it's this simple. Montana was 4-0 in the Super Bowls. If Brady loses this game and he goes 5-3, I'd take 5-3 over 4-0 any day.
Well, I'd say that too, because if Montana were playing great every year, he would have presumably gotten his team to the Super Bowl every year. And not only that, that was in the pre-salary cap era, so you could keep guys around at ridiculous prices because you just could. Same thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers during the 70s. You could build an incredible team because there was no free agency for the players to move around.
Yeah, and Montana, those games, he made 4 Super Bowls. This is 8 for Brady. So 4 of those seasons he lost before the Super Bowl.
Did you have any doubts that Gronkowski was going to play?
No. You knew that was 2 weeks.
Right.
I mean, and the hit wasn't, it was a bad hit, but it wasn't a terrible hit.
Do you think it was intentional, or you can't
No,
tell?
you can't tell.
Yeah, it's easy for us to say, well, they did that intentionally, but the game is so fast and they don't have much time to react.
But
who knows?
You're going full speed. You're lining someone up and you're coming here. If he goes down just 6 inches, you're hitting him in the head instead of the shoulder.
Right.
But you know what gets me on that play? And everybody says the Patriots got all the calls in that game. He got interfered with before he got hit. No one even talked about the interference. When the guy went down to try to tackle him because he got beat, did you see that hit?
No, I didn't see that.
And that knocked Gronk off balance, and he would have been up higher. That's the reason why the guy hit him low.
Do you see the former Patriots, specifically Blunt and Long, as factors in the game, or just role players on a good Philadelphia team?
I see Long as a better factor than Blount. If they want to stop Blount, they're going to stop him. Blount, the thing with Blount, they've been stopping these big running backs. You know, once they get going, they motor, they're pretty quick. You know, he's got to get started, but the Pats have been doing a real good job. The Tennessee game, you know, big, strong running back, and they handle him really easy. And I think they'll do the same thing, but Blount won't handle the ball as much as the other back. But Long's going to put pressure.
I think it's a mistake for fans and some pundits to dismiss Foles so easily. He had a great year a couple of years ago. I think he had 27 touchdown passes and only 2 interceptions, something like that, or a very few number of interceptions. I think he's a very good quarterback. He doesn't have the same resume as Brady, who does, but I wouldn't take him lightly, especially if they're working on those short routes. You know, I think the key for the Patriots is going to really be up on the receivers. I think Malcolm Butler has to have a big game.
Yeah, you know, Gilmore should have a big game. I mean, the defensive backfield has had a pretty good year. But what I look at, like you said earlier, can they handle the pressure? Can they give Brady enough time? Because if they give Brady enough time, he's going to get into a rhythm, and they're not going to be able to handle him. And then you know, Philly hasn't seen a team like the Pats all year. Especially, I heard their linebackers aren't as quick as Jacksonville's. He's going to use his backs a lot more, swing passes, you know, across the middle. So they better get pressure on Brady. If they don't, it's going to be a long day for Philly defense.
Well, I think Philadelphia's corners play aggressive football, and on BostonSportsJournal.com, Greg Bedard's broken down a lot of film, and he shows how they're vulnerable to double moves. Guy will fake a slant and then cut it outside, and they've given up a number of big plays. Certainly when you have Cooks and his speed, that'll be an opportunity, and Hogan's been pretty good at that this season as well.
Yeah, I think Cook had a real good game last game. If he caught that pass that hit his fingertips, he would have had an unbelievable game. 2 pass interference calls, you know, on him, that really helped him. But I think Cook's going to have a big game, and I think White's going to have a huge game coming out of the backfield, and Gronk. Again, the key is if they can give Brady time to throw the ball, you know, Phillies, they're going to be exhausted by the end of the game. They use 7 defensive linemen, but still, if Brady's throwing the ball 60 times, you know, if they get a big lead, I still think he's going to throw it 60 times.
Well, they went, again, in Bedard's commentary, he reviewed the Giants game against Philadelphia. The Giants lost because they turned the ball over 3 times on special teams. But when they went up-tempo, they were able to consistently move the ball and really expose Philadelphia. And I totally expect the Patriots to come out throwing the ball up-tempo and try to wear down Philadelphia.
Yeah, I really believe this is going to be the best game of the season for them. The defensive line is really playing strong. I hope that Flowers, the linebacker,
Marquise Flowers.
He's been doing a real good job. You know, Van Noy, they got to stand up there. If they can have a strong game, you know, the defensive line's going to be strong. Cornerbacks, Butler's the key. You got to think Gilmore's going to have a good game. And the safety.
It's kind of ironic that Gilmore started off the season poorly, probably didn't understand the scheme very well, and they had a lot of trouble against stacked receiver formations and group or bunch formations, but then they figured that out. The guy also who has to play a lot better is McCourty. He really hasn't been great this year.
Well, what they've had him do is he's been back deep 20 yards back there, so he's not involved in that much. I mean, hopefully he can pick off a pass that's long. You know, there's more chance of Harmon doing it than McCourty.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll bring Chung up to almost be a linebacker more and play with Chung, Harmon, and McCourty a lot with that grouping, to try to take away that stuff over the middle to the tight ends.
Chung's going to cover the tight end.
Right.
Ertz
Yeah,
is real
good player.
He'll cover him. He's been covering all the top tight ends.
So it comes down to we have to make predictions for the game. Sounds like we're both optimistic. I like the Patriots in a high-scoring game, 37-34.
Yeah, I like them 31-20.
All right, so you think it's going to be an easy cover for them?
Yeah, I like them. I think, I really believe that this is going to be the best game of the season for them. I just think they're peaking at the right time, and I think Brady's going to. They haven't scored a point in any of the Super Bowl games that Brady's been in the first quarter. I think they're going to come out. They're going to be real strong from the beginning, and I think Philly's going to get frustrated.
A couple former Patriots are in the Hall of Fame voting finalists this year. Randy Moss, part-time Patriot, and Ty Law, most of his career with the Patriots. Do you think they're both going to get in, just Moss, or neither?
Both of them should get in. I mean, how can you leave out either one? I mean, Moss has got to be in.
Right. In Moss's first early career, before the Patriots, if you remember watching him on Monday Night Football or whatever, he was unstoppable, devastating receiver, especially on the deep ball.
Yeah, he'll get in. Both of them should get in easy. Ty Law's got to get in.
Yeah, the other guy who's probably got a really good shot of getting in is Ray Lewis. Had some off-the-field issues, but fantastic player for the Ravens over the years. Super Bowl winner, Patriot nemesis. Obviously, he doesn't like the Patriots still.
No, none of them do. Who does? When you're always beating teams and you're taking Super Bowls away from them, they're not going to be happy.
Do you think that Le'Veon Bell will be back in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, he will. It's gonna. They may not sign him right away, but he'll be back. He's too good. Not only is he a great runner, but he's a great receiver.
Yeah, I think that probably the mistake Pittsburgh made was taking Jacksonville too lightly and really looking ahead to the Patriots.
Oh, they opened their mouth, and then Jacksonville opened their mouth, and thank God Brady came through with Amendola. That was huge.
Well, we look forward to a great game. I'm sure you do too. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The NBA is always in the news, and today LeBron James said he'd think about playing for Golden State if somehow they could open up a max salary slot. How the heck are they going to open up a max salary slot with Durant, Curry, Klay Thompson, and
Green.
Draymond Green must be making $16, $18 million. Are you kidding me?
They're not going to go after. Why do they want to go after him? I mean, that'll really be terrible. I mean,
Well,
the fans will turn them off. Well, not their fans.
To me, it's just weak for LeBron James to even be talking about that. I mean, I get it that he took his talents to Miami and he was able to get championships down there, but really, do you have to join up with another super team to try to get another championship? It's really pathetic.
I think that Golden State's going to have a tough time getting out of the West anyway. I think Houston's, if they're healthy, that's going to be a heck of a series.
Houston is a really physical team, and as well as Harden can explode at any time. The problem for Houston is Harden especially goes on defensive holidays where he doesn't play any defense at all. There's some incredible blooper reels of Harden defense on YouTube. It's unbelievable. He just kind of loses interest.
But you got Chris Paul. Chris Paul's the guy that's going to lead them. I mean, he is so solid in key situations.
Yeah, since the early 2000s, with Daryl Morey as general manager, the Rockets have the third best record in the NBA, and they've got a lot of talent. The other team that is kind of interesting is Oklahoma City. Paul George, Russell Westbrook, they're two great talents. They are really physical. They play well at home, and you never know what's going to happen as far as injuries. Now, there was some talk about the Celtics trying to acquire Kawhi Leonard. I don't know what they'd have to give up to get Kawhi Leonard.
I'd love to see that.
Now, Leonard's been hurt, and
he doesn't want to be with Sacramento, San Antonio.
Can you imagine I'd be willing to give up, if he were healthy, Brown or Tatum, whichever one, and Smart and the Laker pick. Because I don't think the Laker pick's going to end up being anything.
No, it'll be Sacramento's next year. That goes to Sacramento next year. The
Yeah,
Celtics get the Sacramento pick.
Yeah, isn't it like protected though?
1, just number 1, not 2 to 5.
Okay.
So it's 1, and it doesn't have to fall anyway. They'll just get it if they don't get the number 1 pick.
Okay.
And then after that, it's not protected at all the third year.
Okay.
It's
Well,
their pick.
in any event, Kawhi Leonard's not going to fall on your doorstep very often, but that's probably not going to happen.
No, I would give up Brown, Smart, and that pick for him.
Yeah.
Kidding me? Then they become the favorites.
Yeah. I see if he's healthy, and the reason that Golden State had an easy path last year is because he got hurt when what's the guy's name on Golden State?
Green?
No, I want to say Pagliuca. He's one of the Celtics owners. Anyway, he undercut
Oh, I know
him.
what you mean.
Yeah, he undercut him. He was going up for a shot and put his foot underneath him, which is, kind of a dirty play, obviously.
Imagine the Celtics with Kyrie, Leonard, Tatum, Hayward, and Horford starting lineup. I mean, when you want to go small to match Golden State when they go small.
Yeah, I mean, certainly Kyrie sounds like a happy camper here. It sounds like he's here for the duration. And anybody who's watching the Celtics, he's amazing, spectacular, and he's bought into the system. Seems like he likes the guys around him.
He misses Hayward though.
Oh well,
he was looking forward to playing with Hayward. I mean, Hayward's probably one of the smartest players. And you got to figure next to LeBron James, Hayward's probably the smartest player in basketball.
The key regarding Hayward is you don't want to do anything that compromises the rest of his career. So it's not worth getting him back at 75% just to get him to the finals.
No, not at 75%.
So
There's still like 3 months to go.
I know, but he's walking around without a brace now. He's doing stand-still shooting, which, what does that mean? Nothing. You
don't know yet, but I mean,
right.
Like in 2 months, if he's running.
Well, to me, with this extent of an injury, it's as much psychological as it is physical. You have to be comfortable that you can jump and not worry about what happens when you come down, and that's a tough one. Terry Rozier got his first start as an NBA point guard last night and showed up with a triple-double, which is, I don't know if that's ever been done before. But
No, well, no. I mean, with him, this is first start.
We make a big deal of triple-doubles. Guys like Oscar Robertson did it all the time.
He averaged a triple-double for the season.
Right. So he was, Rozier was fantastic. He shot the ball well. He passed the ball well, which is not his forte.
No.
Normally he's looking to score, not to pass, but maybe he embraced that role. And certainly he has a chance to make himself a lot of money if he plays well over the next couple of weeks while Smart's out.
Well, he still has 1 more year in his contract,
Right.
doesn't he?
Yeah, I know, but it's always about building your brand, and he had a little bit of issues. He might have been one of the players that was getting special favors while he was at Louisville, but again, I don't think that was probably unusual.
I mean, so he was getting it back at Louisville. He was a kid then, I mean, if they were offering, and it's not the right thing to do, but that's past, that's over with.
Well, it's not unusual that players are getting special offers. Obviously, we know about the current scandal with Adidas, right?
Yeah.
So the shoe companies and AAU, they have this almost monopoly on players. Gary Williams was a coach at Maryland, had been a coach at BC, and he wrote an article in Washington Post years ago, and he said, I'm never going to get to the national championship because I won't pay tribute to AAU coaches so I can get access to their players. So, a lot of these guys who are coaching these elite AAU teams that just bring in players from all over the country to play, they don't even practice together, some of them. They've been on the take apparently from the shoe companies and God knows who else. If you're the coach and you say, I really want you to get this guy, I don't need to know what happens, I don't want to know what happens, just get the guy, that's what happens.
Well, that's what you see in hockey too, in Massachusetts, high school hockey. That not for money, but
Right.
a lot of kids will go play for a certain coach because he has it in with a college coach. So they know that, and that's the reason why they do that. Say Malden Catholic, that coach knows the coach at BU. if their kid is, then they want him to play for him, so he hasn't in it be you. So
Right. Well, you see a lot, and you see a lot of young players going to prep school for a year or two to try to get to the school of their choice. Some of the, I believe there was a Melrose player a couple of years ago that was offered to BC if he went to prep school for 2 years, and he didn't really want to do that, and that's understandable. It's 2 more years out of your life, and if you don't see that you're going to have a professional career coming out of it, that's asking a lot of a kid.
yeah. Would you trade Smart right now if you can get a player?
Yeah, if you get something good for him, I'm okay with it.
I mean, I would trade him. I think it's time to let him go.
Well, I
Because they're
think
not going to sign him next year.
I think he's a really good player. The question is, what are their plans for him? I don't know that they're not going to sign him. It all depends on the money. If they have, I think he's a restricted free agent, so they can match. The talk around here is they're going to offer him around 10. I don't think 10 is going to do it.
No.
But, I mean, you look at Evan Turner, played here briefly, ended up getting $18 million a year from Portland. I think he's more valuable than Turner. I don't think he's going to get that kind of money, but the way people throw around money nowadays, you never know.
But I think you have to let him go. I'd like to see them deal him now, and get a player who can shoot the ball.
Now, the Celtics have 2 All-Stars in Kyrie Irving and Al Horford, and when there was an injury with John Wall, there was discussion, that, including from Draymond Green, that Jaylen Brown was going to be an All-Star replacement. And I thought that was kind of absurd.
Green came out with that?
Draymond Green said that, now, of course, they've only seen the Celtics play twice, and Brown played well a couple times. But on balance, I think he's a really good player. It'll be interesting to see which is the better player in the long run, whether it's Tatum or Brown. I think they have kind of different skill sets. That Brown can be a little flashier, but Tatum can do more things. I mean, Tatum can really take you off the dribble and make mid-range shots. And I think as he gets more comfortable going to the basket, he misses a lot of layups going to the basket. But
No, that's what he's 19 years old. I would definitely take Tatum over Brown. Brown's been doing some pretty good things lately. Brown doesn't have that basketball mentality yet. He still gets himself in trouble. But the thing that aggravates me though a lot, Ron, I'm watching the game the other day. Brown scored 14 points in the first quarter. Takes him out. Stevens takes him out with 2 minutes to go in the first quarter. Doesn't put him back in the game until there's 4 minutes to go in the second quarter. Holds him out 10 minutes. A guy that was hot in the first quarter. Stevens does that all the time. Tatum may start off hard. He may take him out and sit him down. I don't know what he's thinking about, but you got a 21-year-old guy who's hot. Keep him in there till he starts cooling down.
maybe he's using the Michael Jordan rule, the old joke about there's only one man who was ever able to hold Michael Jordan to under 20 points a game, Dean Smith.
Yeah.
So maybe that's how he was able to keep him at Carolina for 3 years.
But I don't know what Stevens' thinking is there. Let him stay in until you see that he's a little tired.
Well, maybe he's just trying to manage minutes for the whole team so these guys don't wear out.
But Ron, I'm talking about a game where someone's hot. He does it all the time. And he sits him out. He sits him out for 10 minutes. The guy scored 14 points in the first 10 minutes of the game. He's hot. He's feeling great about himself. He's 21 years old, and he sits him down for 10 minutes.
Like last night, Kyrie Irving supposedly sat out because he had an injured quad.
Yeah.
Now, did he really have an injured quad? Or he said, you need a rest. We're playing the Knicks. We can beat them with one hand tied behind our backs.
The Knicks have
take
been
a
playing
rest.
half decent. They won 2 in a row, but
Yeah.
he banged his. Did you see him bang his knee?
Yeah.
The
You never
previous
know.
game?
I mean, I'm glad he sat out. Obviously, the Celtics handled the Knicks easily.
It was a fun game to watch.
It was. I mean, they played really well, and it's good. I was glad to see. I like Abdel Nader. I think Nader doesn't get much of an opportunity because there's only so many minutes to go around. Now, I haven't heard anything about Morris today. After Morris went up for a dunk and got fouled by Michael Beasley.
They didn't
call a foul. He was hit in the head, and he had about an 8-foot fall.
He could have broke his hip.
Right, he could have broken his hip or his pelvis. He was able to leave the court on his own power, but at the very least, he's going to be very sore for more than a few days.
But what's the league thinking about? You got a guy that gets whacked in the head when he's stuffing the ball. The refs, what are the refs looking at?
Well, it's kind of in probably the worst thing that you can do in basketball is undercut somebody. That was always considered.
Well, that's what they did. That's what they did to Hayward, Cleveland, between LeBron and Crowder.
Yeah, so there's not much sympathy for players who do that, and it's really important to avoid that sort of behavior. So, NBA obviously wants to keep stars healthy. It's a really fast game, and it's hard to control sometimes what happens. I don't think Beasley was intentionally trying to hurt him. He was trying to block the dunk. So.
Yeah, but it was a foul.
It was definitely
a
a foul. Anyway, the Celtics have their $8 million injury option available to try to acquire a player. The question is, if they could get somebody who could score off the bench, which hasn't been their strength much of the season. Tyreke Evans is averaging over 19 points a game for Memphis, and how much are you going to pay for a rental? If there were the Celtics draft choice at the end of the first round, I'd be willing to do that.
I'd go with it. I make that deal now. I trade Smart for him. I trade Smart for Evans. You're going to lose him after a year anyway. This is his final year too, right? Tyreke Evans?
Yeah.
And you're going to lose Smart anyway. You're going to be a better team with Evans coming off the bench. I mean, Smart just doesn't. I know that Stevens loves his defense and he's tough, gritty player, but he just doesn't match well with the Celtic team, I don't believe.
Well, we'll see. I'm sure it's impossible to imagine that Danny Ainge doesn't do something with this. I was watching the Cavs Pistons the other night. Really interesting game, the game that Kevin Love broke his hand. Cleveland just looks like a totally dysfunctional team right now. They don't play any defense whatsoever. LeBron James seems to be losing his enthusiasm as the season goes on. Isaiah Thomas is not limping now. A week ago he was limping when he was running down court, so I guess he's improving. I can't imagine any team giving him 3 or 4 years at $20-25 million a year with a hurt hip, though.
What a difference a year makes for him, though. What a shame.
Right. Well, just, you are going to have to pay a fortune, and unless you can insure his contract, which I bet no insurance company is willing to do that unless you're paying an enormous premium.
How sick is he not playing with the Celtics? He had it made here. Everybody loved him. He loved being here. He loved being the star. Averaging 29 a game. Now he's over at Cleveland. He's got LeBron. Most of those players don't like him. I think once he starts playing better basketball, which he will.
Well, I think the Celtics' problem was if they had Isaiah, let's say the Kyrie trade never worked, never went down, and Isaiah's playing comes back to where he is, the Celtics they're the ones who look like the bad guys because they won't pay him. But the reality is when you have a labrum tear, the tear it didn't miraculously go away. It's still there. And if you have impingement where you have some loss of rounding of the ball of the hip pressing up against that damaged labrum, the chance of being hurt again is pretty high.
Yeah, it really is a shame what happened to him because, again, he was ready to make 25, 30 million,
right.
For 3 years. And now, this talk that Cleveland may end up trading him.
Well, if you think about the way professional sports go, for the most part, you're a commodity. Now, there are exceptions, Tom Brady with the Patriots, where we'll never know what happened, but certainly suspicious that it came down to Brady or Garoppolo, and Brady could have gone up the back stairway and saying, "See you later, Jim." And Kraft's loyalty's got to be to Brady. We understand that, and Brady's still doing it.
In that case there, you knew that Garoppolo was going to be going after this year, so they got a second-round pick. It's not the worst thing in the world. Now they have 2 second-round picks and 1 first. But the thing about Ainge making that deal, how about the deal, Bradley, for Morris? That turned out to be a great deal for the Celtics.
Right.
Bradley got Detroit traded him. They weren't happy about him when he got caught fooling around with someone or whatever.
Yeah, he's out on the Clippers now, so I don't know what the deal is there. Detroit should be better with Blake Griffin if he's healthy. I mean, they've got Drummond, Griffin, Stanley Johnson looked really good the other day, a penetrating guard. So maybe Detroit's on the upswing. Who knows about the Clippers? We'll be right back. how much is it worth to be able to dish out an elbow of your choice at your time and get a 5-game suspension from the National Hockey League? For Brad Marchand, it's $373,000 and change. I hope he thinks he got his money's worth, and the next time it could be 10 or 15 games, so you're looking at $1 million out of your bank account for the privilege of elbowing a guy in the face. That makes no sense.
And Ron, he's become one of the best hockey players in the world. He's been playing unbelievable on one of the best lines in the league, one of the top 2 or 3 lines. When you go plus minuses, they're the number 1 line in all of hockey. They had it going great. I mean, at one time they had like 28 points out of 32 at one time or whatever in that area. And they just lost their last game. They have a big game tonight against St. Louis. But, I mean, then McElroy goes out too with the heart problem.
Right.
What is that, Ron?
All right, a certain number of people will have a problem where within the heart, it's a pump, but it's also an electrical machine where you have a pacemaker, you have specialized conducting tissue, and then the heart pump. So you can think about it as a light switch, the light wires from the switch to the light, and then the light. So 2 billion times during your life, the switch goes on and off, travels down the wire, and then your heart beats. Now, sometimes in advanced age, parts of the conducting system or the pacemaker break down, and that's why people end up with pacemakers. But in younger people, at what's called the AV node, the sort of way station along the way of the electrical signal, you get these revolving circuits that cause fast heartbeats. People can feel lightheaded. They can even pass out. So they have a way with invasive procedures and catheters to interrupt those pathways, I believe with radio frequency waves, but it doesn't matter. However they do that, they have a way to interrupt those and fix it. So he should be okay, assuming that his heart structure, the muscle part of the heart is okay. So you see that more. It used to be that it was a rare circumstance for people to get ablation therapy. Now it's very common.
He'll be able to play, and
He should be able to play. No, it shouldn't be an issue for him going forward.
Oh, that's good. I mean,
now the issue for the Bruins is, I mean, they're playing like one of the top teams in hockey now, getting great goaltending from Rask. As you said, McAvoy should be coming back. Now, are they good enough to compete for the Stanley Cup? I still haven't figured out how an expansion team is one of the best teams in hockey.
Well, the goalie is unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, it still doesn't make any sense.
Well, they got Colin Miller from the Bruins,
right,
who's a good puck handler. I don't even know if he's playing because I haven't followed him. But you get down the roster, but you're getting some pretty good players if you draft them right, and they got the great goalie and good defense. It's just like the Bruins. I mean, their defense have gotten so much stronger over the last 2 years. They were one of the weakest 2 years ago. Now they're one of the best defensive cores in hockey.
Right. Well, we want to digress to our coaching section for a little bit here. At the end of the day, you can say this about the best teams. You might say they have the best coaches, but the best coaches are the best coaches because they have the best players. Greg Popovich is a terrific coach, as well as Steve Kerr, Stevens, and so forth. But Stevens got to be a better coach when he got Kyrie Irving. Popovich is, won with Ginobili, Parker, and Duncan. So, as well as developing players like Kawhi Leonard. So it's not like you're winning with nothing. Phil Jackson won because he had Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, as well as an incredible supporting cast. So all coaches are only as good as their talent. So the ability to select, develop, organize some sort of strategy going forward, motivate players, and have some luck because you have to avoid injuries, get the favorable matchups. A lot of things have to work in your favor. I think we underestimate the value of players. I always say the number one determinant of any success I've ever had for coaching is just how good were my players. If the players are really good, it makes me look good.
Well, yeah, but a key too, Ron, is that the players have to respect you. If the players respect you, other players are going to want to play for that coach because he treats the players right and he knows what he's doing. You know, like Stevens. Players respect him. There are other players that want to play for him, so it's easy to get those players. If it was a coach that they didn't respect, no player would want to come over and play with them.
Yeah, you tend to see the contemporary player. I mean, you have team players from around the world, so you can't treat every single player the same. For example, when Manu Ginobili went on to the Spurs, he's coming, he's throwing behind the back passes, all kinds of crazy, what seem like crazy plays, and Popovich says to him, Manu, what are you doing? And he says, Coach, this is who I am. This is how I play. So Popovich realized he had great talent. He says, okay, that's how you play. And, you know, you can rein it in, so you don't throw a behind-the-back pass every time down the court, but obviously Ginobili's going to go into the Hall of Fame someday, deservedly so.
Yeah, and Stevens is the type of coach who lets you play.
Right.
You know, he'll let Rozier go out there and take 10 shots without getting an assist, you know? And if he's on, he really helps him. If he's not on, then it hurts the team. But, you know, stuff like that. Like Stevens is that type of player. Instead of having motion offense, he likes to do spread out the floor, pick and roll. Nothing happens, then come off a pick maybe. You know, now he's starting to let...
Well, that's what I like about, one of the things I like about Gino Auriemma. He lets the players play, but he has the talent to put the players in position where they're going to be able to be successful, whether it's Katie Lou Samuelson or Collier. What I didn't understand against Mississippi State was the last play going to Chang. What was that about?
He talked about that in that show you
Oh,
watched.
I didn't see
Didn't
that
you hear
one.
him say
No,
it?
I didn't see that.
Talking about that, how she got too excited. Players get excited, and she went 100 miles an hour when she shouldn't have. Took the crazy shot. They came back and scored the winning basket. She's the last player in the team that you want, or in the starting lineup that you want to handle the ball in that situation. You wanted the nurse to see in a Samuelson's hand. And, but he talked about that. It cost him the championship.
Right. So now, in one of his talks, he said, the only thing worse than losing is winning all the time, which is interesting because he said it puts so much pressure on the players, and he says he's more interested in having them play to the best of their ability because he knows the results are going to take care of themselves. I mean, he'll say things like, well, if a player has bad body language on the bench, I won't play him. And then he says, well, I have 4 other All-Americans, so it's not that big a deal to me. And he says, I get that. Because when a coach says, well, I don't have the luxury of having that much talent. But he also says, yeah, I'm a hard coach to play for. He was talking about Mosqueda Lewis, and he says, great talent. He says, she could do things that nobody else could do. He says, but she wouldn't do it. So he says, we're running sprints. He says, how does she finish? 6th. Next sprint, 6th. He says, you're not trying. He says, you're finishing in the middle because you're just that much faster than everybody else. You can go half speed and finish in the middle. So then he talks about, there's an interview with her, and she says, yeah, he really worked us hard, but he's a really great coach and so forth. So then he says, I take it all back. He's a really funny guy.
He is. When he talked to us and we went to one of his practices, he was really good. He talked about the players and same thing about winning too much. He goes, I didn't expect last year that we're going to win as much, and sometimes it's not a bad thing to lose a game.
Well, what people don't realize is not only do the teams get ranked competitively, but they also get ranked academically. And UConn went into the tournament last year as the number 1 ranked team academically in the women's bracket. So now I get it that women's basketball is different than men's. There's a lot of one and done action. But if you look at the top teams in the NCAA this year, the top 2 right now are Villanova and Virginia, and both of them don't have a single one and done player on the team.
Yeah.
So, now granted, developing players for the NBA is different than for college basketball. The Melrose girls team is playing really well. They're 10-3. They're second in the Freedom Division behind Wakefield. They have 1 loss, and Wakefield has none in the Freedom Division. they lost the second half of the suspended game because of wet floor conditions. Really unusual situation. Ralph broadcast the first half, and I broadcast the second half.
Yeah, I couldn't make that. Yeah.
But teams playing very hard. They have a lot of will, a lot of athletic players, and they win the games they're supposed to win. The three losses they have are to Wakefield, Belmont, and Woburn. Higher ranked teams across the area. But they're going to have their hands full in the tournament. They've qualified for the tournament. There's a lot of good teams, and especially Pentucket. We've seen the Pentucket middle school program for years, and they just keep churning out players. Part of that is because they have a lot more practice time than we have. I'm not going to say the coaching isn't better. Maybe it is, but they get more than twice as much practice time as we have.
Well, they have a good program with McNamara. McNamara started it maybe 10 years ago, whenever it was, and he had his daughter, and he had another girl family that.
Was it Vaselli?
Yeah, Vaselli. And then when they went through, their younger sisters came up. It was McNamara and Vaselli again, and some other players. And you know the talent that they had. What are they, sophomores now?
Was that the team that the infamous basketball bag episode occurred? Ralph, the referee tells Ralph not to cross the line, so he stacks up all these bags so he can't cross the line. But only legitimately complaining about the officiating.
No, they were fun games. I mean, we would play. Yeah. Some games would be competitive.
Yeah,
but
they were often they were competitive, but we didn't beat them a lot.
Now they have all those girls now as sophomores.
Right.
So the next 3 years they're just going to dominate Division II. They were in Division III. They went up to 2, and Belmont was in Division II. They went up to Division I.
Right. Yeah, so, Belmont's a very strong team. They have really strong youth programs, and it's the integration between the middle school program and the high school program is underrated. If you can have a uniform philosophy, for example, Watertown has had a very uniform philosophy on the boys' side with Steve Harrington, and even though they're a smaller team, they're very successful. Like over the years, Lexington was at one point dominated the Middlesex League, and Watertown's played them even though they're a much smaller school.
Yeah, but one thing I predict Melrose is going to beat Wakefield the next time they play them. When they play them at home, they're going to end up tying Wakefield.
Well, they should have. Against Wakefield, they just couldn't make a shot the second half. It was, it's one of those things where if you say what's the most important part of basketball up through high school, you got to make layups and free throws. And for the season, Melrose is at 51% shooting free throws, and how many games do you lose just because you're not making enough free throws? And it all depends on how much practice time you want to devote to shooting. I remember as a youngster, we'd have 4 sets of 10 that you'd have to compete head-to-head with another player, and then the winner for the day would go up against the coach. And to be able to go up against the coach, to allow your team either to run sprints or not run sprints, and if you beat the coach, you didn't have to run. If you didn't beat the coach, you did have to run. Then you usually need 38 or 39 out of 40 to be able to go up against the coach. And there are not many kids who are able to do that now. They've got a lot of other activities. They've got a lot of other responsibilities, school, dance, arts, student government. But you got to be able to make free throws. Coach Storm, Tom Helen, had a saying, teams that can't shoot free throws in the tournament are a lot like dogs that chase cars. They don't last long. Well,
what surprises me, it seems like most of the girls have pretty good form from the foul line.
Yeah, I don't see people who have bad form.
You know what it is, though, Ron? They don't have that soft touch from the foul line. You got to get that soft touch. So if your ball just hits the front of the rim, it's going to bounce in softly. And if they shoot it so hard, I mean, the form is good, but sometimes with the release, the ball takes off, and the ball, that'll just hit the rim and just skim right off.
Yeah,
so if they get soft, a little better arc and a little softer.
I mean, I look at my own team, and as 6th graders, I don't expect us to shoot free throws well, but we got to make layups. So probably 25% of my practice is just making layups. And after our first 6 games, we were averaging less than 28 points a game. The next 5 games, we averaged over 35 points a game. In the last 3 games, we're almost to 40 points a game, just because we make layups, because all we do is shoot layups in practice.
But like if I was scouting the Melrose basketball team, they have problems shooting from the outside. I mean, they're solid defensively.
Very outstanding
I mean,
defensively.
Lily Cunningham's one of the best defensive players I've seen in a while. She will shut you down. And they're good down low with Sam, and McDonald's strong, and Alexis Doherty's good defensively, Smith, but Cunningham is, you put her on I would put her on the point, she is covering the point guard most of the games. That game she played against Belmont, she was tremendous on defense against Belmont's point guard.
Well, they're very athletic, they're very aggressive, but I think sometimes every team has to figure out where their points are going to come from. For example, use the extreme example of UConn. UConn, they expect to get a third of their points in transition, a third of their points from threes, and a third of their points from set plays. They know where the points are going to come from. Now, granted, they've got great shooters, players like Katie Lou Samuelson, Kia Nurse, Afisha Collier. They got players that can really, really play at both ends. But you still have to get those points. If you're Melrose and you say, well, we're going to get a third of our points on threes. Well, if you're shooting 22% for the year, as they are in 3-point shots, you're just not going to get a third of your points that way. So
yeah, well, the thing that's going to be a key, too, is Alexis Doherty. She played her best game against Belmont, the best team they've faced. If she can get her game going, because she can shoot. Mm-hmm. She's not having a great season shooting, but if she plays like she did against Belmont, that's going to be a huge plus. Because when you have a girl who's going to score 20 points, it makes it easier for everyone else. Because everyone else is a solid player, and Sam Dewey down low.
Yeah, they do a lot of things. Their defense is really good. I think their spacing is really good. They play really hard, and that's a credit to the players for working hard. But to succeed in the postseason, it's really hard unless you're getting a high number of points.
But the good thing is they're having a real good season. I think they're going to beat. I got a good feeling they're going to beat Wakefield when they play them. They have a chance to go 17-3.
Could be. The Red Sox, not much happening. Alex Cora has been in the news for Puerto Rican relief. There are 115 free agents still out there. Best hitter is J.D. Martinez, but there's still others like Hosmer and Moustakis, and we'll see. I mean, the question is are the prices going to come really down? But as of now, the Yankees are the team to beat in the AL East.
Yeah, if they're pitching, if Tanaka has a good year, if his arm's good, you have Severino, you have Gray, Montgomery,
Yeah,
and Sabathia is coming back.
The other thing with the Red Sox is they don't seem to have a good relationship with Mookie Betts. Betts went to arbitration. I think he was asking for 10-5, and the Red Sox were offering 7.5, and it's either or. There's no middle ground. Betts won the arbitration case. He didn't have a great year last year. Maybe he was a little bit hurt. He still finished 6th in the MVP voting, I believe, in the American League. The Red Sox, longer term, they're gonna have trouble. I think he's a Boris guy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but you want to have a good relationship negotiating with your best player.
Yeah, I mean, $10 million is nothing compared to what everybody else is getting. Is this his third year or fourth?
I think this is his 4th.
His fourth year?
So, and then the Red Sox, they have a couple players that are out of options this year. Swihart, which I don't know what the big deal about him is. He hasn't really done anything. Devin Marrero, who's a good field, no-hit backup infielder. And Brian Johnson, who's crafty left-hander. That means he can't throw hard. So I don't think any of them are catastrophic losses when they eventually leave. Vasquez is clearly the #1 catcher right now. Swihart's argument is he hasn't been healthy, so how can you know what he's going to be able to do? Beyond that, I guess the other key issue is what happens with Hanley Ramirez. He has to have something like 475 or 85 plate appearances to have his option vest. So the Red Sox are probably going to do everything imaginable not to have that happen.
He's a fruitcake, though. I mean, you need his power, but he is a fruitcake. So
well, he's not that.
Why not sign Martinez? But they did offer him $25 million a year, didn't they?
Yeah,
for 5 years.
Supposedly, that's what they're saying. I mean, I think it's going to be hard for Boris to get his players the money they want if the other owners are just saying, look, we're tired of overspending for guys who aren't really producing.
What are they going to give Harper in 2 years? Harper's going to be looking for close to $40 million.
And Machado from the Orioles, now my son always says these guys should go to year, so just auction yourself off. I only want 1 year for 50. So if you do that, that's not so bad.
Yankees got the best deal in Stan. Everybody says all the money.
It's going to be cheap.
They're paying him $24 million a year. Florida's paying him 3 out of the 20s. He's getting $27 million a year for the next 10 years. He's only 27 years old.
I agree. It's a good deal. Great move by the Yankees. I've enjoyed being with you tonight. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph LaBella, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Sports.